It's been said that people don't buy reality, they buy image. Are you basing your eternal life on image or on reality? Stay tuned for more on Polygamy. What love is this? She was born into polygamy. Her family followed the teachings of Joseph Smith. All of them, including plural marriage, especially plural marriage. Like many young girls, she had been promised to a man who was her father's age. But she fled. She ran away. She preferred an eternity of outer darkness to a life of polygamy. She chose hell over religious enslavement. That girl was me. After I fled, I thought I was free, but I realized I wasn't free. I was lost, alone, desolate. No home, no hope, no life. Then Jesus Christ found me and rescued me, and He loved me. In His love, I found real freedom, a real home, a real life. And Jesus offers you the very same thing. He is a shield to all who will take refuge in Him. He has been a refuge for me, and He can be for you too. Knowing the surpassing love of Jesus Christ today, this is why I can look back and ask, polygamy, what love is this? Welcome to our show tonight. I am Doris Hanson, and I am your host of Polygamy, What Love Is This? And we thank you for sharing part of your evening with us tonight. I'd like to remind our viewers who attend our monthly discussion group that our next meeting is going to be Monday, a week from this coming Monday, which is November 28th. It will be at 6:30 p.m. And of course, this is open to anyone who has been touched by polygamy in any way. You're certainly welcome to come. Bring a friend. You can email us tv@aboutpolygamy.com for more information. And anybody from any polygamy environment, if you're thinking of leaving polygamy and you're in one now, come on down and let's talk and share your story or just listen to other people's stories. I also would like to mention that there is, again, this year, it's our second annual winter coat drive for the Rescue Mission and the Rescue Haven. Bring down new socks or new or used coats down to KTMW. We're located at 314 South Redwood Road between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. There are boxes in the lobby. You can just bring your coats and socks down to so that they also can have a warm winter and a good Christmas. Last week after the show, we received a couple of telephone calls that we were unable to share on the air, and I thought I would like to answer them at the beginning of the program tonight. The first one, the question was asked, does Joseph Smith have any children from his other wives? And is there documentation? The caller seemed to think that Brigham Young had children with his plural wives, but not Joseph Smith. Well, so far there's absolutely no absolute scientific proof that Joseph Smith had children with his plural wives. However, there is evidence from historical evidence from journals and other items passed down from that time that indicate that there was at least one child that was fathered by Joseph Smith. And I want to quote from something that Anne Eliza Young, who happened to be a plural wife of Brigham Young, what she said, and I quoted this on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I'm going to quote it again to help answer that question. Anne Eliza Young said, "One woman said to me while giving me some of her experiences in polygamy, the greatest trial I ever endured in my life was living with my husband and deceiving him by receiving Joseph Smith's attentions whenever he chose to come to me. Some of these women have since said they did not know who was the father of her children." So that's can kind of help you decide an answer on that as well. Joseph Smith, he had a total of 34 wives, 33 besides Emma. 11 of those wives, we've talked about this many times on the show, were married women who married Joseph Smith as a plural wife, but she was already married legally and living with another husband. So obviously, according to Anne Eliza Young, and of course there's other documentation, the babies of these women could have been either Joseph Smith's or her husband's or legal husbands, and they didn't have genetic proof or DNA testing or anything in those days, so no one really knows. Even the wife didn't know. Joseph Smith had a plural wife named Sylvia Sessions. She had a daughter named Josephine. And when Sylvia was dying, she told her daughter Josephine that Joseph Smith was her father. And of course, since she was his plural wife, that claim was highly possible, even plausible. But most importantly, don't forget that the only reason given for justification of polygamy was to raise up righteous seed. And that, of course, is children. So if Joseph Smith did not have children by his polygamous marriages, why was he living polygamy? He would have been living it unrighteously according to Mormon doctrine. So if Joseph Smith and his polygamy, there's many defenders of him who don't want him to have had kids. So if he didn't have kids, he's damned. And if he did have kids, he's damned again. So I guess he can't win for losing. The next call, her name was Jill. She called last week and she made mention that the LDS living around her are saying that Cody Brown of Sister Wives will burn in hell because he's practicing polygamy. Well, her question, Jill's question is, so do they wonder if Joseph Smith will burn in hell too? Because he's doing the same things. Well, according to Mormon doctrine, it's those who don't practice polygamy who will be damned, not those who do. So it's Cody Brown and Joseph Smith who are doing what Joseph Smith said God said to do. Now, according to Joseph Smith's revelations, the Mormons are the apostates, not the polygamists. But according to the Bible, anyone who relies on anything or anybody other than or in addition to Jesus Christ, they will never see eternal life. Polygamy doesn't, nor has it ever helped anyone's entrance into eternal glory. No prophet in the Bible ever preached polygamy. In all of history, you won't find anybody. Even Jesus Christ didn't preach polygamy. In fact, no one but Joseph Smith and the Mormons preached polygamy for salvation. And surely that all by itself ought to raise some questioning eyebrows. In September and October, we invited Troy Bowles to be our guest to enable us to present to our viewers some of his philosophical approaches to the practice of plural marriage. Well, Troy Bowles is again our guest tonight, and we're going to be discussing several issues as they relate to plural marriage. And so I'd like to introduce again and welcome again to our show our guest tonight, Troy Bowles. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much. It's always a delight to be here.
And it's certainly a delight to have you. You're full of some good information and good discussion. Yes.
I like to talk.
We got a good subject here, right?
We do.
You got a prolific subject. Well, on our September show, you shared that your parents had joined the AUB polygamy group when you were 7 years old, so you were raised in that group from the time that you were 7. And while you were growing up, you had a huge interest in education and particularly philosophy. So if you would take just a little bit of time to give us a little bit of your history about yourself and the relevance of philosophy in your life as it relates to the polygamy issue.
Well, I was a very intellectual child. I've mentioned this before. My biggest concern when I was growing up was to get a proper education. And up until age 7, I thought things were going really well in that respect. But at that point, my parents joined up with the AUB group, and we moved to Pinesdale, Montana. And we were taken out of public school and put into the AUB's private school system, which is woefully inadequate, to put it mildly. Mm-hmm. I was very disturbed growing up this way, and I spent all of my life clamoring for knowledge, trying to gain more wisdom, trying to figure all of this out, and just trying to make sense of it. And I left the AUB at age 17. I got married at age 20, a little young. Wandered around from one job to another. Then I went into the Navy when I was nearing age 25, where I studied electronics, and then got out when I was 30 years old with the GI Bill and ready for that college education I'd spent my whole life craving. Now, with my background in electronics, I started out studying electrical engineering, which seemed like the next logical step, but it just wasn't working for me. It wasn't what was occupying my most important thoughts from day to day. I'm just not a mathematician. So at that time, I was also getting involved in political activism with Flora Jessup and some other of my colleagues.
So your focus was still on the polygamy issue during this time?
Yes, I had never forgotten it, and all through the Navy, I'd become pretty well known to people in my area as the guy who came from Utah who actually did come from a polygamous family. People in the Navy used to ask me, "Oh, Troy, you're from Utah. How many wives do you have?" And I'd say, "Well," and this is when I was married, I'd say, I've only got one, but my father has four." And mouths would drop open at that point, and questions would start. And many times we would go out to sea, and we would stay up late till 4 or 5 in the morning discussing all of these things with the sailors, asking me question after question about the polygamists in Utah.
And were most of them pretty astounded and appalled at the
they
practice?
were. Most of them, when they would ask, it would be joking. "Well, how many wives do you have, Troy?" But that's not a joking matter. I really did come from a polygamous family. And I always made it clear that I never had that intention myself. But back to my education, I was studying electrical engineering and very bored with it and unhappy, and my political activism was really what was pulling on my heart. So I got involved in a case with Governor Mike Leavitt had appointed Eric Ludlow, who had served as county attorney for Washington County, Utah, for 12 years. And we had taken complaints to his office about abuses we'd known about in the Short Creek area for all the time he'd been in office. And so Mike Leavitt appointed him to serve on the 5th District Court as a judge, and I showed up at his confirmation hearing to protest completely by surprise, unexpected. And I wasn't able to talk the legislators into holding his nomination back.
Why did you want to hold it back? What was the protest?
Because there was a girl that we were concerned about in Hilldale named Ruby Jessup, who was 14 years old and was slated into an arranged marriage with her first cousin, I believe it was. 14 years old, and she managed to run away for a time, but when the legal authorities in the area took control of the situation, they simply returned her back to the situation where she was forced into this marriage, and to my knowledge, she had 2 children by the time she was 17. I don't know what ever happened to Ruby Jessup, but we took our complaint to Eric Ludlow when he was the county attorney, and had a certified copy sent to his office to record evidence that we'd given him this information. Nothing was ever done about it, and I presented this evidence toward the the Judiciary Confirmation Committee, and managed to hold up his confirmation for 6 weeks. And this got a lot of people very upset.
Because you held it up, or because of the information you gave them?
Both. I was giving them information about Eric Ludlow, who had been ignoring problems we'd been complaining about that regarded underage marriage, that is our grave concern with this society.
Yeah.
And after that was all over, Ludlow did get his nomination and did become a judge. But I thought about the whole event very deeply afterward and tried to come up with a method. How am I ever going to prevent this from happening again? How can I develop my credibility and my argumentative and writing abilities to become so powerful that I'm going to be in control of this debate,
yeah,
to be totally effective, to save people from this abuse.
Now, isn't there a judge up for nomination right now that's kind of in that same kind of a situation?
Yes, there is. His name's David Nuffer, and he has been serving as a magistrate judge for that's a federal position, of course.
But it'd be here in Utah.
Yes, for the Utah district.
He sent a polygamous girl back to, actually, and didn't it end up being Warren Jeff's 12-year-old daughter, or bride?
That's right. David Nuffer supported the adoption of 6 children into an FLDS family and managed to get this adoption pushed through. Later, one of those 6 children, a 12-year-old girl, was married off to Warren Jeffs.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're very disturbed about that.
Yeah, that's very...
This
anyway,
David Nuffer is currently being nominated to serve on the Utah District Court.
So we know we've got a judge, if he's nominated, that's another judge that's going to be pro-polygamy in his choices.
That's correct, and Orrin Hatch has brought this nomination to the attention of President Obama, who, as far as I know, has approved it. Not enough has been said about this, and we're gravely concerned.
Yeah, we need to be careful about politics on our show, but you know that information is good for our viewers to know. So
it is, and it ties in very closely with philosophy. When I decided that philosophy was going to be the thing that was going to make me most effective in this work, I changed my major at the University of Utah, and I started developing these skills, and I could see right away that it was becoming something extremely powerful. So I realized that I'd picked a winner when I picked this major. So I delved into it very deeply, took more than double the required classes to get the philosophy degree because I wanted as much breadth as possible. And then when I finished, I ended up specializing in political philosophy. I also specialize in human rights and justice, and also philosophy of religion, and I can lecture at great length on religions of India. It's a fascinating topic that we'll steer clear of for tonight.
Yeah, we won't do that tonight. But you had a problem. Did you want to go into the difficulties, the life-threatening, actually, incident?
Yes. I was in a very serious car accident my junior year at the University of Utah. It was life-threatening. I had to be taken by life flight to LDS Hospital to the trauma center where I almost bled to death. And while I was in the trauma room, the people in there seemed to expect me to die at any moment, and I contemplated my own existence quite deeply right then. But I ended up with a head injury that compromised my abilities in philosophy. my short-term memory had been compromised, and it took some time to regain those abilities. But most of all, my ability to concentrate had been compromised to such an extent that for quite a few months, I was unable to read any books in philosophy. They were just too much for me to concentrate on.
So that kind of held up, did that hold up your education progress there for a while, didn't it?
It did very much. It happened right in the middle of a semester, and I remember thinking that Friday night in the hospital, how am I going to get back to school on Monday morning? That was just silly. I wasn't going anywhere. But I dropped 2 of my classes. I just couldn't keep up. But against the advice of my doctor, I kept my political philosophy class and showed up 2 weeks later with stitches running down my forehead. And my professor, Professor Dean Chatterjee, a very dear friend of mine up at the university, he was rather touched by that, I think. I don't think I even realized what I was going through. I waited until my doctor told me that I could drive, and then I went back to school. But it was a huge struggle to make it through to the end of the semester. And Professor Chatterjee was very able to work with me, and I've been studying under him ever since.
Good. And you're going to go back and get your PhD?
Yes, I'd like to apply for my PhD next year.
So how does your activist work now? You have an interest still in philosophy and in this political activism. How is that working as it's relating to this polygamy issue? The polygamy issue is getting more and more in our face.
There are 4 branches of philosophy. I'll only talk about one, and that is ethics. Ethics is the philosophical study of morality. And I am firmly convinced that this is the most important human topic there is. Ethics was just what I was looking for, exactly what I needed to be able to deal with this problem I'd been coping with since such an early age. So through ethics, I was able to learn the proper argumentative techniques, learn how to write human rights theory, and to be able to debate these matters against the most.
And you do an excellent job on the internet. You do an excellent job with that.
Why, thank you very much.
We read your letter to the editor on the first show that you were on, which had all the important points.
I think it's easy to see that I've spent quite a few years doing this, honing these skills, and trying to become the very best in the business at
Well,
this.
we're looking forward to see what you do in the future as these things continue to mushroom, because they are mushrooming to us in our society.
Thank you. This is very important and exciting work. I can't think of anything more important for me to be doing right now.
I think it is. Now, tonight my opening statement was, people don't buy reality, they buy image. And what I'd like you to do, if you will, is apply the concept to the image of polygamy that seems to be being impressed, if not sometimes forced, into the minds of society today as being a legitimate alternative lifestyle.
I've given this quite a bit of thought, actually. Philosophers, we love to talk about what constitutes reality. And
we don't want to get too deep here.
No, I'll try not to go off the deep end, which can easily happen. But now I've lost my...
The image, people buy image rather than reality.
There is an obvious effort right now among Mormon fundamentalists to cast polygamy in a favorable light. And one can certainly understand their desire to do this. I mean, the reports that we're getting from the FLDS are really damaging the credibility of these societies, and they're doing everything they can to change that image.
They are.
But something I've been noticing for all the years I've been doing philosophy is that in the public, people often don't give their assent because something is rationally or logically believable. People often, too often, tend to believe things that are merely sensational or interesting. They want interesting things to talk about. They don't want boring facts, boring truths. So, sensational things seem to be what people like to believe, although that goes against logic and reasoning in every possible way.
So the sensationalism of Warren Jeffs and the FLDS, or the sensationalism of the book Love Times 3, which is the most interesting to the public?
I think probably the sensationalism that's going on among the FLDS in Texas, and the convictions that have been going down there. We've got at least a dozen now. Mm-hmm. Recently, they just convicted Merrill Jessup, who mm-hmm. was a high-ranking FLDS official, and sentenced him to 10 years. His 12-year-old daughter is the girl who was forced into an arranged marriage with Warren Jeffs.
Warren Jeffs, right.
This marriage was, or the consummation act of this marriage took place in the Holy Temple mm-hmm. of the YFC Ranch and was recorded on audio tape. Mm-hmm. Warren Jeffs kept a copy of this audio tape with him as he traveled around the country, as, I guess, for his listening pleasure. Very upsetting. But what's really upsetting is copies of this audio tape made it into the state of Utah and were suppressed by Utah Judge D. Benson, for example, who ruled that this audio tape was protected religious material.
What? No, I had not heard that one before. That's interesting.
This is information coming from my good friend Sam Brower.
Uh-huh. And we're going to talk about his book now. He wrote a book called Prophets Pray. Sam Brower is a private investigator. I think we've got a copy of this that we're going to show on the screen. And the book has just recently been released. I think October was when it came out. And Sam Brower is the author of that book. And he's on a publisher's tour right now promoting the book. We've tried to get him on the show, and when his promoting tour is over, we hope to do that. But we've both read the book, and we both wanted to talk about some of the things that's in it.
Right. I hope you do get Sam on the show, because he's a very interesting man.
I've talked to him several times on the phone and by email a million times too, but we just haven't gotten him on the show yet.
Very extremely intelligent and thorough. Uh-huh. He's a private investigator, and he's spent the last 8 years following Warren Jeffs around from one place to another, trying to find something that we could nail this guy on.
Well, if it wasn't for his work, the work that he did that is documented in his book here, they probably wouldn't have had Warren Jeffs arrested or prosecuted. His work was so good and so complete.
I completely agree with that. Putting Warren Jeffs behind bars was a huge effort that took enormous manpower and some very, very tricky operations. We really had to think hard to figure out how to put this guy away for life.
Well, you know, and he brought out in that book, and also we know through past other crimes that have been revealed, not only in the FLDS, but other polygamy groups, that there's sex crimes that are taking place inside polygamy groups. Now, we know sex crime takes place in other parts of society.
Yes.
But we're not talking about other parts of society.
That's
we're talking about polygamy groups tonight. And there seems to be a greater violence, sexual crime, violent crimes against children in polygamy groups. Based on your knowledge of the secretive nature of polygamy groups, why do you believe there's this passivity going on, not only with the media and the politicians, but with the public, about what this behavior in polygamy groups with this sexual violence with kids? This
is the most troubling aspect of polygamy. to me. And some of the information that has come to us just in the last 6 months has been so disturbing that we just cannot keep silent any longer.
Yeah.
When I started doing activist work about 10 years ago, my family became very upset that I was speaking publicly about polygamy. And this took its toll on me in a very deep way. Between this and my car accident, I ended up spending 2 to 3 years isolating myself in a darkened bedroom, fighting depression and trying to figure out how I was going to come back out on top again, maintain my career, and make that difference I've been trying to make for all of these years.
Well, you're working at it now, and we're very proud of you.
Thank you very much.
So we're at the bottom of the hour where we need to do our break. But we're going to open up our telephone lines now. Our phone number is 801-973-TV20, 801-973-8820. And before we break, I just need to say, based on what you've just said, isn't it more important? I think the saying is that it's better to stand alone in the truth than it is with the crowd believing a lie. And I think that's what we're up to. So we're taking a halftime break now with our message.
You are watching Polygamy, What Love Is This? Broadcasting live from Salt Lake City, Utah. This program is the broadcast outreach of A Shield and Refuge Ministry. Shield and Refuge is a point of first contact for Mormon fundamentalists who question the doctrines of the religion or who are actively seeking for an opportunity to escape the polygamist lifestyle. Examining the claims of fundamentalist doctrine against the backdrop of biblical truth is central to our efforts. We invite you to contact us. Call toll-free at 877-425-9993 or email us at tv@aboutpolygamy.com. You are welcome to join us in our monthly support group, Life After Polygamy, where you can meet others like yourself who are searching for answers about polygamy and Mormon fundamentalism. We meet monthly in the Salt Lake City area. For more details about time and place, call us toll-free at 877-425-9993 or email us at tv@aboutpolygamy.com. We want you to know that we've made available to you some outstanding resources free of charge. You will find them at our website, www.whatloveisthis.tv. There you will find the DVD, Lifting the Veil of Polygamy, which documents the real-life stories, told firsthand, of those who were lifted out of the culture of polygamy through the power and love of Jesus Christ. Also, free of charge to you is the booklet, Is Polygamy Biblical? It explores plural marriage in the context of God's Word and answers questions like, did God ever command polygamy? Is it part of God's plan? While you are at our website, make sure to take advantage of the archived episodes of this program, which can stream on demand directly to your computer. There are more than 100 shows to choose from. And if someone you know is unable to view this program via live broadcast, recommend that they visit this same website every Thursday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time to watch this show through live streaming video. Simply follow the links to the live streaming video page. If you are watching live tonight, we invite you to call us as we open our phone lines. The number is 801-973-TV20. That's 801-973-8820. Now, back to Polygamy, What Love Is This? With our host, Doris Hanson.
Welcome back to the show. Our phone lines are open. The number is 801-973-8820 if you'd like to give us a call and join in on the conversation with us. We'd like to hear from those of you who are in polygamy group. Maybe you're a young adult or a teenager and you'd like to have something to say about what it's like to be in a polygamy group. Maybe you've gotten out and you want to talk about that too. You can always use an alias. You don't have to give your name if you're going to get in trouble for calling in, but we'd love to hear from you. This is Troy Bowles, our guest, and we've been talking about various aspects of the polygamy and philosophy that surrounds it and sex crimes that goes on in polygamy groups. And to that end, we want to talk a little bit right now about the Pinesdale, Montana polygamy group. It's in Pinesdale, Montana, which is about 5 miles north of Hamilton, Montana. It's a polygamy group that's situated on the foothills of the mountains up there, and I think it's about 450 homes or people or something like that in that area. But there was a situation that happened in October. I want to read the newspaper article, portions of it, so you can see what we're talking about. And it says, on October 3rd, 2011, a 15-year-old Pinesdale boy was sentenced as an adult for rape and sexual assault. A district judge gave Moroni Judge John Nuttall back-to-back 10-year sentences for each of 2 counts of felony sexual intercourse without consent and 2 counts of felony sexual assault. The maximum sentence for each count is life in prison. 36 of the 40-year sentence was suspended. Sexual intercourse without consent is one of 5 charges in which teens older than 12 can be tried as adults in Montana. Judge Haynes said Nuttall should be tried as an adult because he threatened the safety of the community and the offenses were serious felonies. During the sentencing hearing, the prosecution played a video interview where he admitted to coercing the young girls to taking her clothes off on several occasions and then performed a sexual act. He admitted to doing the same when he was 13 to an elementary-aged girl and a teenage girl. The 2 counts of sexual assault relate to his admission to touching 2 young boys. Court record indicate that Nuttall's parents were aware of their son's behavior, but took little action until he was arrested. Now, for more information, you can go online to the RivaliReview.com, and you will be able to find more information there. But this is just one instance where we're grateful that the authorities actually was able to take control of the situation and remove this danger from the polygamous community, but that doesn't always happen.
Right. I'm concerned that it rarely happens, actually. When something like this happens, and it hits so close to home for me, it's very disturbing.
Yeah.
I grew up in Pinesdale. And to hear about this sort of thing, it really hits close to home, and it's been tugging at my heartstrings for ever since I heard about it. I've lost many a night's sleep over this. This is a horrendous issue.
Did you know the family? Did you know any of the victims?
I do know the Nuttall family, yes. I don't know any of the victims. They were all born long after I left the AUB. But Moroni John Nuttall is 15 years old, and he's been committing these crimes. Why is this happening in societies like this? This is a question that comes to my mind all the time, and quite frankly, I think a big problem is that these children just aren't even being instructed that there is such a thing as sexual abuse. I don't think that they're being instructed that they're not to touch the private parts of other people.
Isn't it normal for a man to have several females in the polygamy group?
That is what they call normal, yes.
Yeah, so why wouldn't a boy take advantage of many females?
I don't see why not.
In the polygamy group, they do what they see.
It's completely patriarchal. The men are in charge, and the women are belongings. I have to be frank. That is the reality of it.
And don't they have the idea that the priesthood, the male holds the priesthood, and once the male in the home holds the priesthood, they have control and authority over all the females in that home, whether it's their mother or their older sister or grandmother or whoever. That's
correct. The authority goes to the male. It has nothing to do with any other abilities, leadership qualities, intelligence. It goes to the male.
That is so wrong. So absolutely wrong. My goodness. Well, we got a couple of calls we need to take, and then we can come back to our conversation, or you can call in and give us your opinion of what we're talking about tonight. But on line 1, we have Adam from Ogden calling. Hello, Adam.
Hi, Doris.
Hello, you're on the air.
I'm just wondering, what's your topic today?
What's our topic?
Yeah, the topic.
Our topic is polygamy.
What was the, sorry, you said this a while ago, about image and,
I can't understand you, Adam. What was your question? Do you have a question about our discussion?
yeah, what was the topic? It was like, image and reality.
I'm sorry.
Image and reality.
Oh, is that what he's saying?
A bit of clarification on that. Yes, what we were saying is that there is an image that's being promoted by these polygamous groups. They're fervently trying to come across as being non-abusive. It's not working, I'm afraid. The truth is coming out.
Yeah, and we want more truth to come out too, as well. They're giving the image that polygamy is a viable alternative lifestyle.
That's right, and that's exactly how they describe it. But we do have to think deeply about matters like this, because if they're going to say that it's their religious liberty to practice polygamy, what do we have to say about the religious liberties of these underage girls?
Yeah, exactly. Is that your answer your question, Adam?
Along with that image and reality, does the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, do they practice polygamy right now?
No, they do not. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints officially abandoned that practice in 1890. It took several decades before polygamists actually moved away from the LDS Church, and by 1930, the group that was to become the FLDS had formed in Short Creek, which we know as Colorado City, Hilldale.
Yeah, and most of the groups actually splintered off from the Short Creek group.
That's right.
At that time.
All of them did. The first group, I believe, to break away was the Kingston group around 1935.
Yeah.
The AUB broke away about 1953. And they bought the property in Pinesdale, Montana in 1960 and started establishing that community.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Okay, I was just kind of confused because along with the image and reality, your show kind of made it sound like the LDS was still practicing polygamy, but they're not right now. But it's kind of like the false,
Adam, we
like
didn't
the
even
break-off of the church that are practicing it.
we
correct?
didn't talk about the mainline LDS church tonight. We were talking about the polygamy group. So, you know, if that's what it sounded like, maybe that's what maybe the shoe fits. Anyway, we have another call to take, but thank you.
Okay, bye.
Well, line 2, we have Lori in Spanish Fork. Hello, Lori.
Hi, is this Doris?
It is.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I have 2 questions for your guest, Troy.
Sure.
Okay, my first question, Troy, is how is it that these underage marriages can be going on in Utah and our elected officials are not, pursuing or investigating these illegal activities? That's my first question. My second question is, can you answer that question first?
I'll try to. I wish I had a good, honest answer to give about this, because if you ask me, it's a disgrace. Utah politicians have turned their backs on the human rights of these victims, and they've been coddling these sex offenders and protecting them from law enforcement for decades. That's just the reality of it.
And most of their marriages are secret when they do take place.
They are secret.
But let me mention right here, too, something on those underage marriages. Once this FLDS story broke a few years back with these young girls getting married, most of the polygamy groups at that time who were practicing these underage marriages, they stopped all of the marriages that were taking place under 18. But what they did is they started to betroth these young girls when they were young to these older men who were either polygamous or maybe not yet, but would be. And what they did is they made covenants of betrothal. They said you couldn't sleep together until you're 18 and get married, but you're betrothed to that person and you cannot break that covenant of betrothal. So it's the same, almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lori, are you still with us? Okay.
Yes, I'm still here. My second question is you mentioned the issue of the adoption of the 6 children by an FLDS family. My understanding is that the rules or requirements for adoption in the state of Utah are pretty rigid. You know, you either need to be a married heterosexual couple, or you meet certain, requirements, being a single individual that has the means and the ability to raise a child. How is it that someone in an FLDS type of environment, or that kind of a religious environment with a polygamous family life, how is it that they can legally adopt children and, have the elected officials or the federally appointed officials, put their stamp of legality on it and make those children legal dependents of those types of individuals? And that was my last question. So I'll let you go if you can answer that for me so I can watch the show.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Doris.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Why no prosecution? Why did David Nuffer allow this adoption to take place? I don't have a logical, reasonable answer to that question, and I would invite David Nuffer and indeed President Obama to answer that question.
I think one of the reasonings that I heard at the time was that they were familiar, they knew the culture, and they were loving. They're just because they're polygamous doesn't mean they wouldn't be loving to these adoptive kids. And there is nothing that would indicate, according to his opinion, that would indicate that there is any reason why he shouldn't let them.
That's a rather
the
foolish decision by a judge. These people were committing a felony, were they not?
Yeah, they are.
They were and are committing a felony, and he pushed for this adoption to take place.
And what's interesting about this, and I will continue to mention this on the show until somebody addresses it, our Constitution of Utah says that polygamy will be prohibited forever in this state.
But we don't have any...
Don't they make an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Utah?
I'd be quite surprised if they didn't. I've been in our legislative sessions here.
Well, they're supposed to uphold the Constitution. They are supposed to do that. Let's go to line 3. Kathleen in Salt Lake City. Hello, Kathleen.
Hi, how are you, Doris?
Very good, thank you.
And your wonderful guest. I just want to call and give you kudos because I've watched your show for many years, and I think that it takes extreme courage to address the subject that you do on this show. And your guest is so enlightening. And I was born into a Mormon home and adopted out of that home at 2.5. And when I started doing research on my biological family, I found that I had come out of a biological family that did practice polygamy. And so I'm doing my research in that. And I just want to tell you that I think you're amazingly tough for what you're able to present fearlessly toward the public that you must address. And so I watch you all the time and think of calling and telling you how much you've improved my life.
Well, thank you, Kathleen.
And just want to thank both of you for your courage.
I sometimes think that God has a sense of poetic justice. When I was growing up, we were taught, and I'm sure you were too, that we could not talk about what's going on in the polygamy groups. And we were threatened with hell and damnation, sons of perdition, and everything else if we ever spoke about what's going on inside the polygamy group. And here I am talking about it, and the whole world gets to hear it, either on TV or the internet. And God's bolt of lightning hasn't struck me yet. In fact, He's the one who made this possible, and we praise Him for that.
Thank God, and we thank you so much for your mission and journey that affects us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Kathleen, I'd really like to talk with you. Would you mind leaving your number with the operator, and I'll give you a call?
Yes.
Okay.
I would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Praise God.
Yeah. Bye. Okay, that's a good phone call. Thank you. We like
very
kudos.
good. It's encouraging to hear from people like this because there is a lot of discouragement in this business. I can't count the number of people who have tried to dissuade me from doing what I do, and
yeah. And it's more
frightening.
important now. The closer, the more that this is coming in the media and the sister wives and the glamorizing of polygamy, the more it's needed for us to bring out the truths of what's really going on behind closed doors. You know, back to the Pinesdale, I talked with a woman who had come out of the Pinesdale community. 3 or 4 years ago, I spoke with her. She was raised in it as well, and she had left, but she had stayed in communication with many of the people within the group, and they would come to her and talk to her about some of the abuses that were uncovered, and she started writing them down. She told me she had, at that time, had accumulated 50 pages of documented abuse, and I said, have you been able to go to the authorities? And she said, you know what, I've talked to them, I've asked them about it, but there's no proof, and there's no victims that will come forward, and until victims come forward, there's nothing they can do.
That's right.
And why won't the victims come forward?
Why won't they? Well, like you said, they are instructed from a very early age to never discuss polygamy. I've been strongly forbidden to discuss this in public. And that hasn't been easy for me. Going public is not easy for me. But it's such an important job, and so it has to be done.
And you've been there and done that. You know what's like to be in a polygamy, just like I know what it's like to be in a polygamy group.
I've seen the faces of girls who are 14 years old, married off to older polygamous men. I've seen those unsmiling faces.
Yeah, the fear and the I spoke with a mother. She lived in Hamilton, and I can't give a lot of details on this, but she had a teenage daughter, and a boy, kind of like this story we just read tonight, was pursuing her daughter from the Pinesdale group. And this mother was scared to death. And she talked to me, dozens of times she talked to me, asking for advice, what to do. She talked to the sheriff, she talked to the principal of the school, she talked to the leader of the group up there, and asked them and the parents of the boy to get him off her daughter's back. And one night, he snuck her away, took her up to the community, took her virginity, and then brought her back home, and the mother was just fit to be tied. She had tried so hard to protect her daughter, but this young boy, just like this boy here, ignored, and the parents ignored, and it happened. The mother had to finally pack up and leave town, take the daughter with her, get her out of there.
It's as if there are no rules. When I was living in Pinesdale in the 1970s, I don't think I ever saw a police officer on that property, ever.
It's like they're afraid of the polygamists.
Well, maybe once. Once I saw Sheriff Dye on the property up there trying to resolve a water issue.
Oh. Okay, we have Karen calling from Salt Lake City. Hello, Karen.
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you. I'm just confused. My question for Troy is, I don't understand why it's President Obama's fault about polygamy in Utah. I think we should take responsibility at a state level, at a county level. How come Governor Herbert and Mark Shirtless have done nothing to prosecute these people?
Good question.
Total agreement that it's illegal.
Here's another, this question is coming up again. What's going on here in Utah? What is going on in the state government?
With Obama, he's the one that nominated the judge.
That's correct, and he did it, no doubt, through the influence of Orrin Hatch.
Well, then, let's talk to Senator Hatch.
We have been trying to talk to Senator Hatch for years about this sort of thing.
I just don't like Obama bashing.
We're not bashing him. It's just a fact that he did.
I'm not trying to bash the president, but this is a very serious matter, and I think he's been steered in the wrong direction and been given the wrong information. I'd like the president to talk to me about this.
Well, I would too, but I think he's got bigger fish to fry, and that we should handle it on a state level.
Well, we're doing our best.
He nominated the federal judge, though, and that is a federal level.
Yeah.
He nominated him to be a federal judge.
Yeah, we're really concerned about this right now, and I just don't know exactly what the president is thinking about all of
Well,
this.
he might not even know
He
about
might
it.
not
That's
even
just
know.
something to
That's
be
what I think.
considered.
Yeah, and that's probably very likely. I mean,
It's unfortunate.
ignorance about polygamous society is really quite rampant.
Yeah,
let me
it
tell
is.
you.
It certainly
Well,
is.
if there's anything, I guess we should just write our Congress people.
Yes.
You should.
Yeah, right. Let them know that you're displeased about the way they have treated this matter. Children in these societies have religious liberties too.
Well, they have basic human rights of safety and
Exactly.
protection by their parents and by their civil authorities.
Right. Every one of us has the right to be free from harm.
Well,
And-
we should protect them, and we
And
should
that-
uphold the law.
That's right.
Exactly. That's our responsibility right here in the state of Utah. And we have a severe problem with our government because they don't do anything about it.
So your suggestion is just
Right.
contact our state.
Come down hard
Right.
on the state government. And another thing is, it's very easy to get a hold of me if you would like to. If you would like to ask me a question online.
We need to go into closing now, so
Okay,
you
that'd
can
be
get
great.
a hold of him online, and or you can email us, and I'll be happy to forward his information to you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks for calling. And we have another call here from Guinevere in Hilldale. But if you would leave her number, I'd love to call her back after the show. We don't have time to take the call right now. You know, Jesus is often used as an example of being politically correct and tolerant, someone who loved and embraced everyone, who never criticized people's religions and choices. And this is so blatantly untrue that when anyone says these things, we know that he has no clue of what he's talking about and that he doesn't know the Jesus of the Bible. Jesus was painfully intolerant of religious lies. He did not tolerate other religious beliefs as being valid. Jesus did love and embrace all people, but he viciously rejected every single lie that was leading people to hell. One lie that this culture has embraced is that Joseph Smith had a vision that he saw the Father and the Son together. Yet 1 Timothy chapter 6 says that no one has seen or can see God. If no one has seen or can see God, how could Joseph Smith have seen him? Shall we believe what Joseph Smith said about God, or shall we believe what God has said about himself? God also tells us that his love and his grace are sufficient for us, and that through our knowledge of him, we can have everything we need for eternal life and for godliness. But don't you think it's kind of odd that the New Testament never mentions polygamy or the United Order as a means to godliness or to get to heaven? Jesus is the only one we're to look to exclusively for eternal life. Never works, never ceremony or ritual, only the method or any other method to win God's favor. There is no other way except Jesus Christ, who gives us what we need. So you need to depend upon Jesus or on Joseph. Thanks for coming, Troy, and we'll see you next week. Good night.